Hey, friends. Thanks for tuning in. It's a great episode today with Tom Hammaker, who is Rich Schefren's new copywriter, just hired a couple weeks ago. And I'm going to share with you the story through Tom of how he won this job in a challenge against about 50 other copywriters, some of them with more than 20 years experience. Tom has been in this business about 4 years, and he's now Rich Schefren's one and only copywriter, working with his amazing team over there at Steal Our Winners. And I want to tell you about a really cool new program we're doing inside of the Copy Chief community called Copy Lab. This is where marketing companies come in, they share with you, all the members of Copy Chief, the strategy behind their campaign. We isolate one part of the campaign, one piece of copy. Everybody in the membership is invited to write their version of that asset. 3 will be chosen to test, and the winner will receive a cash prize. Now, this is a way for everybody in the industry to get a close look at what strategies are working today. If you're a freelance copywriter and you're feeling like you're sort of stuck on the outskirts of the industry, wondering what really goes on in there and what do great clients do and think and act, and how do they talk to copywriters and what do they expect from copywriters? Well, we're going to end all those mysteries through Copy Lab. I'm really excited about this. I think this may be the best idea I've ever had. And it's based on what you're going to hear about today, what we did in the Goods, which was a higher level program where we were specifically grooming someone to become Rich Schefren's copywriter. Of all those 50 copywriters, each wrote a cover letter and a sample email. They were chiefed by Patrick Beauvais, the legendary copy chief over at MarketWise, and was a mind-blowing experience for everyone, myself included. And Rich and Felicia, who runs his company, of course, couldn't be happier to have so many great choices and to finally choose Tom. So you're going to hear that whole story today, and I invite you to join Copy Chief at the regular price for 2 more months, because in September, we will be 10 years, and the price is going up because the value only continues to grow and grow, including with Copy Lab, which will be free with every membership. So if you're not yet a member, go over to copychief.com/join and get yourself inside, because the game is about to change once again. Enjoy the episode, and I will see you inside.
You're listening to Copy Chief Radio. Get all the episodes and join the community at copychief.com.
Today's episode is a special edition of Copy Chief Radio. I'm here with Tom Hammaker. Tom recently was hired to be Rich Schefren's copywriter. Imagine what a great gig that is. It's everything you think it is. Rich is as amazing to work with as you would imagine. He is as connected in this industry as you would imagine. You know how smart he is and how much he's done. The process we went through to help Rich find the right copywriter is what we'll be discussing today. If you heard my episode about the Goods, you have an idea of how we did it. But today we're going to get to talk to Tom, who won the gig and was hired gleefully by Rich and Felicia, and is just now getting settled into that new role. So Tom, thanks for being here, brother. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you having me on. We got a lot to talk about.
I know we do. And I appreciate you being open about all of it. Let's just go back to the moment. We started with about 50 copywriters in the Goods, just so people are clear. It was not a competition, but it was something like that. Really, the goal of it was to take all the copywriters who entered the Goods. I hand selected 25, and then we had our normal coaching group, which you're a part of. So that made about 50. They all paid $2,000 to be there. And it wasn't about winning the gig so much as it was understanding what clients like that are looking for, how they think about working with a copywriter, and how to position yourself to land any such gig of that level. So that's what the goods was all about. But Rich was absolutely hiring a copywriter. And so we used Rich's product as the test. And about 50 copywriters submitted a cover letter and an email to be reviewed by Patrick Beauvais. If you guys don't know Patrick, he is one of the most decorated copy chiefs in all the industry. He's been with MarketWise for, 20 years now. He was the copy chief at Legacy Publishing, Legacy Research, which recently closed. Patrick is still with MarketWise. Of course, it was not his fault. They were very high producing. It's a whole nother story why that happened. Talk to Porter Stansbury about it. But Patrick is an amazing copy chief and has led teams of 20 in the past, producing millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, Tom, as you went through the process, just give me your experience of, forget getting down to the final three, because it went about 50 to about 16 to 7, and then a final 3. And the 3 of you went through a pretty intensive final writing test. But talk about your thought process as you went through the goods on the whole.
Yeah, definitely. And to start, you hit a really good point where it wasn't really a competition, and it didn't really feel like a competition. And for me, especially, and most of the people in there, we all have lives of our own or fully booked up and clients of our own. It was really just an entire learning experience with this additional bonus in the background that, hey, you could land a gig with Rich, but it really didn't feel like there was any sort of pressure just because there were so many people. It's like, man, if I got this, that would be great. But I'm already learning so much within the goods that it's just great as it is. And so it really didn't feel too high pressure.
Yeah, it's very supportive. Everybody was rooting for each other and learning a lot, I think, from how their instincts compared to other copywriters, because we had copywriters in there from some people with less than 2 years experience, some with more than 20. It was a really good gauge, wasn't it, of kind of where you're at?
Totally. For me, I don't know about other people, but I'm pretty nosy. So I like to know where everyone else is at in their career. I like to size, myself up. And for me, that's really fun. It's competitive, but it's not destructive competition. It's like, okay, here's someone I could strive to be, and just paying attention to how people operate. And so when we went through the first writing test, it was no pressure. Obviously it was like, wow, Patrick Beauvais is going to look at my stuff. So that was exciting. And everyone was kind of nervous for that. And then after all those results, it was 8 people to then interview. That's when your heart started pounding a little bit, and things for some reason instantly just became a little more real. And suddenly it was a little more high stakes. And that's when things got really interesting, because that initial interview, it just wasn't like a normal interview with
Right.
other companies looking for copywriters. Usually, you get on, you might perform a writing test first or submit samples, and they'll ask you about the samples, or they'll ask you about your process, and they'll ask you about your background. But this was a little different. You kind of skimmed over that stuff, and we got really into who you are as a person. How fast can you think on your feet? It was really a great glimpse into people who run a really tight ship, and just, they know what they're looking for. They need someone who can come up with ideas, or they're looking for someone who can think on their feet. And so for me, I've had some really great opportunities, but to just interview with someone at that level, it was an entirely new experience, completely new experience.
Incredible. And to be clear, was that interview with Felicia?
Yeah, that was with Felicia. Each step along this process, I learned something completely new.
Oh, yeah.
So within the goods, I learned a ton of new stuff. With each interview, I learned a ton of new stuff. And so that was, for me, the really big takeaway from everything.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's one of my best learning experiences ever, too. As a guy who makes a ton of these connections. And I didn't want it to be just transactional anymore, where somebody needs copywriters. I recommend some people, they hire someone. That's all great. It's like, I want to make sure this goes well. And so I really now only help companies who are very communicative with me, who are open to my feedback about how to work best with copywriters if they haven't done it before. And so Felicia Pagesh is Rich's COO. I assume, I don't know what titles they use there, but she runs the show. And she was the person that this copywriter would be working with the most closely, of course, along with Rich and the rest of the team. But that was one of the first takeaways in the goods was, even though Felicia was present in the goods in framing up things, I feel like she got overlooked maybe a little bit in regards to people thinking, how do I impress Felicia?
I would totally agree. Yeah, everyone, including myself, really focused on just the name of Rich Schefren.
Right. It's understandable why they did it, but it was a big lesson, like, know who's making the decision here.
Yeah.
And it was in front of you, so you should have noticed, but very few people went, oh, I need to get to know her. I need to do as much research on what matters to Felicia, because at the end of the day, that was the key.
I totally agree. And something else I think that was really important too is just staying clear on your own values and like just how you kind of do things, and don't switch it up just because you're trying to impress Rich. You're trying to impress Felicia. Just like go with what you know, even if you're newer, just because like now was not the time to experiment with something new.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good point. A few people did that, I think, where they were like, I don't know why I did it that way. I just got it. I got a hair and I just went with it. And, which is fine. But I'll just point to what one of the big takeaways is going to be for this interview is, man, be yourself all the way. And if it's right, it'll work. Like, that's all you really need to be. Assuming yourself as somebody who is a real pro, shows up like a pro, is prepared, asks good questions. Aside of that, don't guess who the client wants you to be other than yourself, because even if you can pretend your way into something, it's going to wear out way, way quicker than it would if you were being genuine.
Yeah, like 100%. And if we talk about the interviews, like that would have all been figured out. And that was actually the really interesting thing, is because a lot of times, especially with me, is like when you prepare for an interview, you think yourself in the best light possible and you have all the perfect answers to every question. But we only touched on those like typical interview questions, like I said, like 30 seconds to a minute. Wow. So all of that perfect idea of you is like thrown out the window. You still got 15 to
now
20
you're on a park
minutes.
bench having a conversation. Yeah.
That's right. You can't really fake that.
Yeah.
It really comes down to just being your true self at that point.
Okay. So it goes down to 8. You're right. It was 8 because someone came in after, kind of won their way in after the fact by doing some really impressive stuff. Then it gets down to 3. And at this point now, I guess the heart's really pumping.
Yeah. When it got down to 3, it almost got strange, just because everyone came out of the first interview a little uneasy. Like no one was like, oh, I aced that thing. No one, which was also really interesting. And I think just a testament for like how in-depth the interview really was. And yeah, when it got down to 3, like a lot of mixed feelings. It's like, okay, this is getting real. This is a really important gig. But at the same time, if I don't get it, life still goes on. But like we really gotta dial in here and like perform at our
blow it. Yeah, don't go to sleep on it now. Yeah.
Yeah. But also don't stress yourself out, because if you stress yourself out, you're gonna be too tense. And if you're too tense, you can't write copy tense. And so like juggling all these different ideas and thoughts through your head. And so then we went from an interview with Felicia initially to an interview with Rich. And once again, just a complete deep dive really into who you were as a person, rather than just I mean, we touched on some of the typical interview questions, but like I said, just touched on it. It was really it felt like an interview for character and I guess the type of like values and whether you would bring like integrity to the table and that type of thing, which in my experience, at least so far, like I haven't had too many interviews like that. So it was again, just
Right.
like, wow, this is how the really, really high level people are testing. And this is excluding the copy tests so far. We didn't even get
Right.
to
Not
the,
even to that yet. I think the minimum call between the three of you and Rich and their individual calls was like 90 minutes. I think one
yeah,
went 3 hours. I mean, it just, and that's who Rich is. He just, there's no surface level to Rich Schefren at all. That's so cool that he was a dream client that through this whole thing because of his intention. It's always about intention. Will they do what it takes to find somebody for the long haul that it really is a match, not just I'd say culture match. Like you said, integrity, character, instincts. That's beyond culture. Like that's a human to human thing, and this is a very human business. Despite everybody's fear of robots, very much a human industry. So, all right. So then you get to the writing test, and pretty intense, man. I'll let you describe what the writing test was. This was a paid writing test, and it was very thorough. Yeah.
yeah, very thorough. And so essentially, what made it so intense was the level of options you had with which direction your copy could go. So we had some guardrails, like some guidelines, like we needed ads, we needed a sales mechanism, whether it was a sales page all written out or like a VSL or a mixture of both. There were upsells and all the prices were already established. But it was up to you. There was no definite avatar, there was no definite idea. And so, I mean, your mind can go down hundreds of different directions at that point. All you have is the structure of the funnel. Oh, and then the other thing is you could sell one episode or three
Yeah.
episodes.
So for context for everybody, in case you don't know, the product is Steal Our Winners, which is Rich's signature program. Think of it something like Masterclass, the video series for marketing. I mean, Rich, because of who he is, gets people to just reveal everything they're doing that's working, innovative things they shouldn't want their competitors to find out. They'll tell Rich out of respect, and so the episodes are amazing. But as Tom mentioned, there were no rules on how you could sell a subscription to Steal Our Winners. It's like pick one video and make it the focus on that, and you get a new one every month. And there's all these other great ones, or you could bundle a few up on a theme if you wanted. So, what are you going to use for inspiration of? And there's what, a couple hundred or so episodes in there.
Yes. Good luck. Good luck choosing.
Yeah, like you said, an endless amount of choices and ways to approach it.
Yeah, and those are the guidelines. And then it's up to you to create the avatar, the idea, which episodes you're going to choose, what sales mechanisms you're going to use to sell them, what platform you're going to advertise on. And then every piece of copy obviously had to be written out, including video scripts and everything. And then it was a 4-week deadline, which is relatively standard. But, we all had our other stuff going on as well. And so that's what made things ultimately the most interesting. I think the hardest thing of it is like, where do you start? And then how do you just keep moving? So I think all of us, it took us 2 weeks. So all three of us took about 2 weeks to determine which episodes we were going to choose. And then after that, there was no going back. By then, you had your idea,
right.
You had your episodes, you had your avatar. It's like, you're all in because now you only have 2 weeks to write all the assets.
And praying for no life events to happen. As with any project with a hard deadline, but it's like, man, come on. No flu, please. Like no fender benders. I don't need any distraction. I have a question. I haven't asked any of you this yet. I remember the three of you had a call together, the three final candidates, just to, again, support each other and that kind of stuff. I don't know if I told you this. Dave told me about the call, and I was like, absolutely do not have this call. And it wasn't because I wanted it to be competitive. I said, but there's just no value in sharing any ideas you have with each other at this point, because the whole point of the goods has been to just see a writer's instincts in their purity. So was there any of that, or did you guys just kind of have the one call, wish each other luck and move on?
Yeah, we just had one call, wish each other luck. Now, all three of us are talkers, so I think it was like an hour and a half call, and we were talking about marketing for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then we just got off on everything else. So like got to know each other real well, which was great. But yeah, we did not share ideas. Me, like I get in very easily, so I didn't want to see anyone's ideas personally, just to not influence myself. It would have made things a lot easier, if we could
Yeah, sure.
look
But
over each other's stuff. But yeah, we didn't. We ended up not. So it was kind of like every man for themselves. Granted, we all have supportive networks and stuff. So it's
right. But at this point, I mean, everybody wants the gig and it's this close. Yeah. So you choose. I won't go into, I want to protect privacy, but I don't think that would be stepping on anything. But I'm just curious why you chose a bundle, which I personally thought was the smart option. Two chose a bundle and one chose a single episode, which again, just on its own, you can imagine limits you if you're going all in on a single episode for it to resonate with and then, by the way, if you're curious, the reason Tom said there's no one avatar is because there just isn't in Rich's business. I mean, these are incredible insights to how direct response marketing is working best today. And that's for a lot of people. Anybody in this industry essentially is going to benefit from this. So they could have chose a certain avatar. Oh, maybe copywriters would like this the most. Oh, probably traffic people, whatever. Tell me why you chose the bundle and what avatar did you have in mind?
Yeah, so this goes back to a little about what I mentioned earlier, where I was like, this is so high stakes. Like, now is not the time to take the biggest risks. And so I kind of thought back to, I started with the avatar. So before I chose the bundle, I needed more guidelines to give myself, or guardrails to give myself. So I was like, okay, first I need an avatar. And so I really boiled it down to like, who am I most experienced in working with? And that was a lot of more beginner type online business owners, course creators, like coaches of that matter, just through like past agency work and speaking with them on coaching calls and writing a lot of their ads and hearing their problems. And so that is where I started from. And then additional research and reading through forums and just getting up to date on that market, because it has been a year and a half really since I've worked directly with them. And so that is really where I started from. So it was like my wheelhouse. I stayed in my wheelhouse for
Smart.
this one.
Yeah, right. What to whatever degree you can. Yeah,
Exactly. And then from there, it was like, this is a very beginner oriented audience. It might not be the higher level marketers who've been in business for 10 years now and know everything there is about funnels. And so more of a beginner oriented audience. And then from there, you start coming up with ideas and looking for that big idea that's going to really capture this audience's attention. And once the big idea was really like discovered and came to light, with that particular big idea, it made just perfect sense to have a 3-episode bundle. There was no reason not to have a 3-episode bundle. Now, I'm sure there are ideas out there where a single would matter or would be a better fit. And also for context, you could choose two. So you chose like a 3-episode bundle as my first choice, and then they wanted to know your second choice as well. And then
right.
And so for me, they were both 3-episode bundles just because it made so much sense with the big idea.
Yeah.
Which was all about like, this is like the ultimate shiny object was really the core of the big idea.
Right.
And so why not demonstrate that with 3 episodes rather than just 1 episode? And so all of the decisions really were based on some sort of a logical process that either it fit the avatar the best, fit the big idea the best, the platform we chose fit the big idea the best, or whether the mechanism you use to sell it, whether it made the most sense for like Rich's time and resources available and the quickest way to test something. So we don't shoot a 30-minute VSL and then find work. And that's Rich's time that's gone. That's a lot of resources that
Right.
goes to waste. So everything had to be based off a very logical choice. And like I said, that we only had very minimal guardrails to start. So this
Right.
made all the project more interesting because it wasn't just 4 weeks to write, it was 4 weeks to think, explain, and write.
Yeah, I've heard the term building the plane while it's in the air. This was installing guardrails while you were driving down the highway or through the mountains, right? It's like really interesting, like very unique, right? Like it's just normally, you're hired and all the other intensities there. You really want to do well. You've got a tight deadline. It's on you to do research and come up with ideas, but it's not usually up to you how you choose to approach that. It's like, here's the product. It's got to include these things. So really interesting and intense. It was such an eye-opening experience. And then I had the privilege of, and again, I respect privacy and all those things, but remember when all 3 writing tests were in, I was actually flying to Colorado that day, and Felicia texted me and she's like, I just reviewed all the writing tests and I'm really overwhelmed because they're all great candidates. A lot of them have a lot of good stuff. A couple of them have things I'm questioning, and I just want to make sure I'm questioning the right things. So without me saying a word, would you please look at them and give me your notes? So I literally got on the plane, opened them, read through them all, gave her my notes, and she's like, it's like we're the same person. She goes, I literally thought all the same things. And I'm like, okay, well, hopefully that means they're kind of obvious and apparent and correct, but we're only 2 people. And Rich is completely trusting Felicia, of course, and he's just like, he's asked for her feedback. He read through all the things as well. But I guess he had his own perspective in some ways because he's had those long calls with you guys and was approaching it more like a relationship at that point. And so any of 3 of you would have been a good choice. And it just had to come down to who feels like the surest to work with in regard. Because, that was another big lesson, how much they were considering what it's going to be like to work with you. What's it going to be like to have this person in our world? Again, beyond culture fit, like, are we going to trust that they're doing the work and it's going to come back to us as close to complete as possible before we have to get involved and collaborate and polish it off? Or are they going to be in a sort of a sea of madness all along the way that may or may not be a necessary part of the process? And one thing I'll say is they said they were leaning towards you kind of the whole way for that reason alone. Before they saw your work, they said, this is something about Tom. He's so laid back, smart, and we know he gets it, but there's kind of like not a bunch of extra words. And again, I'm not saying this for anybody to take away that you should be a certain way. Again, it just goes back to that completely be yourself. You're a super mellow cat. Some people could take that as you're not enthusiastic. You know what I mean? Like, what? Does the guy get excited? Is he on Zoloft? Like, what's going on here? But you're just a cool, laid back person. And in this case, that was one of the things that made them happy to choose you.
Yeah. And for me, that was really interesting because I had no idea that, like, I didn't know what they were looking for. I didn't know that they thought a certain way about me. I didn't know Felicia had sent you and you were reviewing stuff too, and they were getting outside opinions. So I think it just goes back to just showing up as the writer, marketer, really just the person you are, and just letting that show all the way. I know it's like kind of tacky to say like be yourself and whatnot, but
it's a cliche, but I mean, it just always works better. And I think it's more about like, what else can we do in life? We can't go through life guessing or pretending, right? And so the only thing to do is just embrace who you are, work on yourself. That's the one thing we can control and improve is who we are, how we go about life, how we react to things. how we plan for things. And then it's about finding alignment in the world, because you can't force alignment. You can't really force opportunities. It's ultimately going to come down to, does somebody want you around or not? Or does somebody want to partner with you? Or does somebody want to follow you? I mean, from influencers to whatever else, when people are being truly themselves, that's when they really break through.
Totally. And if you don't know what they're looking for, and especially if you're a candidate, there's no way for you to really know everything they're looking for. So therefore, like, you really don't have, there's not much choice but to just do things the way you do things, and just speak the way you speak. Because what if they're looking for who you actually are and the way you go about things, and you decide, oh, I have to put on like this facade because that's the way they act. But maybe they're looking for someone who's more complementary to the way they are. And then another thing I forgot to mention was that you brought up the word, like, how you plan. And, over the past year, I used to be, do things last minute. I was the guy who started the paper at midnight. But over the past year or so, I planning became like my secret ingredient. And if there's one thing I did for those calls with Rich and Felicia, it's that I planned everything, especially like that call with Rich. I was prepared for Rich to ask me anything, like, what 3 books are you reading right now? What's the last movie you watched? I mean, every question I could think of.
Wow.
How ridiculous. I just wanted to be fully prepared for anything that came up in a conversation. And I think that contributed to just keeping my head straight and keeping cool and calm and collected, even though there was a lot of stress and tension through it all.
Right.
But anytime you're in a high performing environment, you have to almost welcome the stress, because that's really what it is.
Marketing, baby. Yeah. Certain industries you don't get into if you're not up for that challenge. Yeah. Awesome, man. So now you're in, it's official. You told me you're kind of just getting onboarded. It's no rush to, like, you don't have a promo. What's it been like just immersing with the team?
Well, everyone is super enthusiastic. They're lighthearted. You get on a call and everyone's having a fun time. Like, everyone's having fun. They're enjoying their time, but they're laser focused and they're fully prepared, and everyone has ideas, and everyone contributes, and everyone supports each other. And so you have like this perfect balance between lighthearted and playfulness, and then just showing up fully professional, not wasting. I mean, there is not a second wasted on their calls. And it's just because everyone's on board with this idea that, we're running a really efficient machine. And it's really incredible to be a part of and just to watch, because everyone holds each other to just such a high standard of integrity and values and respecting each other. And, I've only been on a few calls, but everything is very congruent, and it's ran a very specific way you can just tell is very high level. And it's just really cool to see how it happens like that.
It's wild. And very few people get a look at someone like that. Like, we can wonder, like, how does Rich Schefren actually operate his business with all his experience, his great success even before he found this industry and different industries, and to see it manifest in that way. Because, it's a lot of people with a lot of respect in the industry, and you peek behind the curtain of their business and it's absolute bedlam. It's just, what I'm saying? You have to understand what you're good at and find great people to fill in the gaps. And I think that's a big struggle for some leaders in of all business, because they're just maybe not willing to let go, or their ego dictates or whatever. But it's a special thing to witness. And I'm thrilled that you're part of it, Tom. Couldn't be happier that you won. I mean, honestly, anybody, and that's what Rich was saying all throughout. It's like, I'm just so blown away by this process and all these amazing choices. Like, there isn't a single person who showed up for this thing that I couldn't see working with, right? That I could discount immediately. Almost like an American Idol kind of vibe for them and for me to watch, because it was like, it's a hair difference between choosing one person over another. And there's no America votes. So it's like, so it gotta be you. And I'm just thrilled for you, man. There are no mistakes in life. You earned this. Man, you're about to grow really fast. You're already good. You're already good and you're super smart, but You're just like being plugged into the matrix or something. I mean, this is going to be insane.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. And you setting up the whole thing with the goods just to start and presenting this as even as an opportunity, incredibly grateful for. And then all your support through the entire process is just unmatched. And, I have a great team behind me within our community, the coaching group. And then Rich's team is so supportive too. And so I'm very fortunate to be in a spot where I just have all this support from pretty much anywhere I look.
Yeah.
And so that
you have Rob Tillman in your corner.
Yeah.
Melanie Warren. I know Rob worked with you very closely throughout this process. And it's a beautiful industry that way, right? It's like, it's just a lot of good people around. And if you can assemble them and corral them for a very specific purpose, beautiful things happen. And this is one of them. So congratulations, Tom. I'm really, really proud of it and thrilled for you.
Thanks again. I'm incredibly grateful for everything.
Yeah, buddy. Well, I know you're going to make us proud, and we'll be right here with you. All right, Tom Hammaker, everybody. No, there's no download. Are you building a list, Tom? I don't know. Maybe there is something.
I'm not building a list.
All right.
Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, say hi to Tom, be a friend, congratulate him. You'll definitely be hearing more from him because, again, he's a big part of Copy Chief, and he's going to be growing, and you'll probably be seeing him and Steal Our Winners do things with the team over there. So coming out party for Tom Hammaker. You heard it here first on Copy Chief Radio. All right, buddy. Thank you, man. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
Talk soon. Thanks again.
Hey, don't forget your goodies. Head over to copychief.com/copychiefradio to get some great free stuff to help you put the things you hear on the show into action for your business. copychief.com/CCR.